kind of revealed this to me in detail over the last few days, based on some things. When I'm always asking God what He wants me to speak and to teach, He's taking me deeper into concepts that I thought I knew about, but He's taking me deeper into those things. And so this is one of those things that the Lord has done for us. And so then, I'm trying to get myself together here a little bit. I ain't gonna call a man name, but let me just let y'all know what the Lord is doing. Okay. I ain't gonna say his name because he didn't say he wanted his name said. I probably should have said he, but I already did. But the Lord has stamped His approval on us for where He's taking us. And so then we have a responsibility to do things God's way, because God has a plan for us and provision is already being made. And He's letting us know that. And so then I have been praying, as many of you have, that the Lord would open doors and that He would make ways in supernatural ways for us. I'm asking that my house be blessed, that the house of God be blessed, but not only that, but your house be blessed too. Because when we ask you to give, we ask you to sow seed, you can't give what you don't have. So I'm asking God to increase us all, so that if our money go up, our tithes automatically go up. And so then we're starting in the right place. But the homecoming committee and I were just sitting back there. We were going over a few details, and someone came in the door to the meeting and asked to speak with me real quick. And so I said, well, I know we're in the middle of this meeting. We're almost finished. We're not done. We got a little more to do. But I knew in my spirit, get up and go see what he wants. So I did. And walked out. And the gentleman, fresh off work, said, I just need to see you for 30 seconds. I said, all right. He says, I see what you all are doing. And he says, I want to sow a seed into what y'all doing. And he took 10 $100 bills and put it in my hand.
All right.
Gave me $1,000 and said, I know I can't buy my way into heaven, but I just want to be a part of what the Lord is doing. And so all I'm telling y'all is the same thing the Lord is doing for His house, He's going to do the same thing for your house. I just want us to catch it by faith. I just want us to catch that by faith.
Thank you, Lord.
Oh my God.
Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord.
Amen.
Jesus. I receive that. Hey!
Oh my God. Y'all, we got stuff to do. We got work to do. We have a charge to keep. And the Lord is not going to allow our homes to be lacking trying to get His work done. He owns a cattle on 1,000 hills. God ain't broke. God ain't struggling. God ain't sick. God ain't without. God ain't confused. He ain't sad. So we serve a God who has it all. And I believe if He got it, I'm there. So whatever He got, I got it too. Amen.
Yes. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus.
All right. So we looking for more of that. So don't be thinking not strange. When your phone ring and money you had held up, they say we done worked it all out. Where you want the money to go? You better get your checking account and your routing number handy, so you don't have to go looking for it. Tell them, well, you called me back, and no, I already got it. It's right here.
Yes, Lord.
Don't think it's strange. All right.
That's right.
All right. So now we're talking about the priority of being planted. Now, this comes from a place where there is a fallacy that's traveling around in Christendom. where people or certain persons are trying to build this idea that you can know Christ in his fullness and grow to your greatest level of purpose and priority outside of God's design organism of the church.
Come on.
And so then you hear people say that I'm not a Christian, but I'm spiritual. Or they look at the church with a judgmental lens, and they look at the church as if the church is not even relevant anymore. Actually, I think it was BET. They put out a memoir that they were asking millennials to evacuate their churches. And they were talking about some issues that happened with Miss Kim Burrell. She made some statements about alternative lifestyles, and there was another gentleman who did. And so they pretty much came out and said that the church is old fogey, judgmental, and that you just need to leave the church and you can do what you need to do without that. You can be spiritual without being a part of a local church. And that is an assignment of the enemy to drive people away from the very place that God has designed to build us for the working of his kingdom.
That's right.
And so what the enemy wants to do is he wants to scatter us, because if we're scattered, then he can attack and destroy. The Bible says that Satan says he's going to and fro, walking about on the earth, seeking whom he may devour. And that he is like a roaring. He's not a roaring lion. He's like one. And so when you think about the roar of a lion, lions roar. They come up to the pack of wildebeest or whatever it is, and they roar so loud that the sound confuses the prey. And they begin to run and scatter. And what they look for is the weakest one in the pack that gets so discombobulated that they veer off away from the pack. And now they key on that one because that's the one who can't be devoured. And so then what the enemy tries to do is roar in our lives through our situations, through our jobs, through our financial distress, through the loss of loved ones, through people talking crazy to us. He tries to roar so loud in our lives to get us to veer away from the pack into isolation, because in isolation he can destroy us. Because once we're together, once they're in the pack, there is strength in the numbers. A lion is not going to run directly into a pack of wildebeest because he could be trampled to death. So they're trying to get one to get off to themselves, and that's the one they're trying to destroy. Now, once we know that, and then we think about the fallacy that the enemy is trying to push in the church, to leave your local church and go off on your own. You too spiritual. They don't appreciate who you are. You more anointed than that. They don't let you do this and that, so you need to go off on your own, go rogue on your own. Well, what happens is you put yourself in a situation where now you are eligible to be devoured. You're off by yourself. And so what we're going to talk about is the priority of being planted, because I believe that the Lord has outlined some things in his word that are really going to help us to understand why it's important to be planted in local ministry. Now, first of all, we have to understand this. We cannot allow the world to define for us what the church is. We cannot allow the world to define for us who Jesus is. That's something that we should know on our own, because here's the problem. When you allow the world to define the church, the world can only describe the church by what it sees. So look at the Bible, 1 Corinthians 2:14. You write it down, I'll read it. 1 Corinthians 2:14. It says, but the natural man receiveth not the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness unto him. Neither can he know them, because they are spiritually discerned. So then, if we were to take all of the tenets of our faith and ask the world to define them for us, they would say that everything that we do is crazy. Because if you look at the tenets of the world, how can you explain that a woman who never was with a man had a baby and say she was pregnant by God? That don't make sense nowhere in the world. I don't care who you are. That don't make sense. But when you know by faith who Jesus is and you believe in the word of God, it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. And so then when we ask when we look at the world and the world look at you and say, hey, Why is it that you go down to that same place 3 or 4 nights out the week? You got all this stuff going on, these games on, the playoffs playing, and you down at that church. That don't make sense to them. But you know that when you come with the saints, that there's something you get from being around other believers that gives you a strength that they don't have. It don't make sense to somebody in the world to take 10% of the money you make on a job that you may not even like and give it to people that you don't know what they do with it. Come on. They tell you crazy for that. But when you know God and the Word of God, you know that the devourer is rebuked because of your tithing. So you know that everything else in your life is working because you did it, and they say you're crazy because you are. But then they come to you and ask you to borrow $5, but told you was crazy for giving. But see, here's the idea though. Those same people will tell you that all of this Christian stuff is crazy, but wait till the crisis come in their life. Guess who they're going to come find? You. So it's crazy to them when times are good. It's crazy to them. But when crisis strikes, they want to go to somebody who believes in that crazy stuff. And so that lets you know that's who the one who's really crazy. I'm just asking. So then, this verse tells us that a natural man cannot receive or understand things of the Spirit, for they are foolishness unto him. Neither can he know them because they are spiritually discerned. That's like if my work computer is a PC, but my personal computer is a Mac. If I save a file on one and try to move it to the other one, it won't read it. I can't take this file, depending on what it is. I can't take it out of one and put it in the other. It won't read it. It does not understand it. It does not have the capability to process it. And so in the same way, the world does not have the equipment void of the Spirit to process spiritual stuff. Because how else can you process somebody walking in sick and leaving healed? The doctors who get paid a lot of money will tell you all the time that sometimes stuff happens that they can't explain, that they medicine don't even understand. It's plenty of doctors who pray. And they'll tell you, if you're in the room, I suggest you call on your God. They'll tell you. Because they know that God can do stuff that medicine can't do. Professionals now, they ain't going to necessarily tell you, well, don't pay me the money, go down to the church and get your healing. They ain't going to tell you that. Now, they want that insurance money. They're going to get that. But they have common sense to know that there's a level beyond human knowledge that supersedes it, that God has a power that supersedes all of that. Yeah. So this verse tells us that people, that the natural man cannot receive or understand the things of God. They are foolishness to them. That's why we cannot allow people to define for us our relationship with God and the church. They always going to tell you crazy until crisis come out. Then they're going to come to the crazy person for help. Amen. So then look at this. So Jesus says, he asked the disciples, he says, I think it's Matthew 16. He says, who do men say that I am? Some say John the Baptist. This is a reply to get some say Elias, some say Jeremiah. Then he asked them, now who do you say I am? Now here's the caveat. They have walked with Jesus. They have had experience with Jesus. And thus he has revealed himself to them personally. Come on. So he says, so since I have revealed myself to you personally, let me start off by asking you, what do the people around you, who do they say I am? Some say John the Baptist, some Elias, some Jeremiah. Now, since you have a personal experience with me and know who I am, who do you say that I am? So Jesus is trying to define, and he's trying to find out from them how much of the world's definition of me is in you. I want you to, since you have a revelation of who I am, you know me, you've seen me open blinded eyes, you've seen me raise the dead, you've seen all of this stuff. So then, let me ask you, who am I? What do you say? Based on what you've seen against what they said. And what's amazing is there's so many people in the church that go what they say above what they have seen. And so now you look at people that are going back on the faith who know it was God who did it. You can give me all the books in the world. Man, tell me, I don't know why you reading that Bible. A man wrote that. Well, if you give me any book in the world that a man didn't write, what are you talking about? Man wrote all of them. Well, this one, I know for a fact that it ain't no errors. Ain't no errors in this Bible. Okay, you were there. So you 1,700 years old is what you telling me. So this book you trying to tell me ain't got no errors in it. You was there 1,700 years and you walked with them as they wrote it and made sure that nobody write nothing extra or erase nothing. But here's the difference between what you saying and I'm saying. I tried it.
All right.
And I know what it'll do for you. Amen. So you can give me all your information, but my experience and my personal revelation of the Lord, who he has revealed himself to be in me, trumps all the stuff you say. I can't explain it anyway. If you come on one side of a trial, close your eyes, Jesus don't know what's going to happen, and wake up on the other side. You can't explain that. So what you want me to tell you? Well, tell me, it must not have been a real issue. It must not have been a real trial. I was there. Like the man who was crippled, he said, listen, I'm him. I'm the one. Well, look, I don't know what y'all talking about. All I know is that man. I was blind. And now all I know, I was blind. Now I can see. I can't explain to you what he did, but I'm telling you. And our experience with the Lord ought to put us in a place that even when you can't explain, you're not shaken. I can't explain it, but I know who did it. That's for sure. So he wants to find out for them how much of the world was in them. Has the world's definition of me changed how you see me? Now, some religions say that Jesus was a prophet. Some say he was a good man. But when you have a personal revelation with God, you can say with definitively, thou art the Christ, Son of the living God. Now, so then, the church is the organism that God has used to plant his people. And he works through the church to get us to where he wants us to be. So there are certain levels of maturity, blessing, breakthrough that you can't get by yourself. It's certain areas or certain levels that you can only achieve together. One could chase 1,000, but two can put 10,000. There's a power in agreement. And so that's why the Lord says, I want you to go and I want you to grow where you've been planted. Now look at this. Turn with me to Psalm 92, verse 12 through 14. And I may not even get to the introduction tonight, but that's fine. Psalm 92, verse 12 through 14. All right, let's look what it says. I'm reading out the King James Version. It says, the righteous shall flourish like the palm tree. He shall grow like a cedar in Lebanon. Those that be planted in the house of the Lord shall flourish in the courts of our God. Verse 14. They shall bring forth fruit in old age. They shall be fat and flourishing. Let's read verse 15. I like that too. To show that the Lord is upright, he is my rock. Yes. And there is no unrighteousness in him. All right. Now, let's go back and unpack these verses. Go back to verse 12. It says, the righteous shall flourish like the palm tree. He shall grow like a cedar in Lebanon. Now, this word flourish means to break forth. Flourish is the picture of a seedling coming up through the earth. It breaks forth, it springs forth. He says the righteous shall spring forth, but then he gives an analogy of how it's going to happen. Like the palm tree. Now, one of the most unique characteristics of a palm tree is its elasticity. It's one of the greatest characteristics of one. its ability to bend and to move. You can bend it and curl it and turn it, and it won't break. And so the fiber of the palm tree is so elastic that even when it's loaded with considerable weight, it still grows straight up. So he says, the righteous shall flourish like a palm tree, meaning that you'll bend, but you won't break. Now we're talking about being planted. You'll bend, but you won't break. You'll move to side, and sometimes I look out over and I can see outside our spirits, we just like this. Weight of the world is on our shoulders, like stuff hanging on this side, and the child pulling you on this side, and the bill that you can't pay pulling you on that side, and you don't feel good, that's pulling you that way. And you got some answers you're waiting on, and that's pulling you back this way, and you just leaning side to side. But he said that if you planted, you'll bend, but you won't break.
Jesus.
Oh my, it feels like Sunday. Oh, Jesus.
Thank you.
When you plant it, you'll bend, but you won't break. But what the Bible tells us something about that, 2 Corinthians 4:9. We are troubled on every side, yet not distressed. We are perplexed, but not in despair. We are persecuted, but not forsaken. Cast down, but not destroyed. Bend and don't break. When you plant it, he says you'll bend, but you won't break.
Glory.
Satan, he says, Simon, Satan desires to have you that he may sift you as wheat, but I prayed for you. Not that the trouble wouldn't come, but that your faith don't fail. I didn't pray that it would work out in your favor all the time.
Come on, help us.
Because we need all the seasons. I told y'all, all sunny days produces drought, and all rainy days produces flood. So you got to have a cycle of some rainy, some good days and some bad days, some bright days and some dark days to get the whole cycle of life. Every season of life is necessary.
Thank you, Lord. Thank you.
We don't like wintertime a lot of time, but do you know what wintertime does for a plant? It kills stuff that would eat up the fruit in the springtime. So the larvae of the insect that would destroy the fruit when it comes, the wintertime kills it. I don't want no cold days in my life. But then wait till you get to the place where God begins to pour out in your life, and now you're going to find out that there was some leeches that should have been gone a season ago. They're still hanging on because everything was always good. Let you have a lot of money and get broke. That's your wintertime. But watch and see them scalp. They'll get all the way off your team, go find something else to do, so that when God brings you into your next season of abundance, all them leeches are gone. God has a way. That's why we can't look at seasons, and every due season has an off season. Every due season has a season where you got to plant. There's a time for everything. So we have to look at that and say, Lord, whatever season I'm in, not how can I get out of it, but what am I supposed to get out of it? Where do you have me, where I am right now in this time of frustration? What am I supposed to learn about you and myself? Come on. And some stuff, if we knew everything that God wanted to do in our lives, we wouldn't choose it. So sometimes God put the blinder over our eyes and say, walk by faith and not by sight. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. You still got to go through the valley, but just know I'm going to be there. In arm's reach, thou art with me. I'm going to be right next to you. And if you trust me, you know I'm not going to let you be destroyed. So look what he says. He says, for the righteous shall flourish like a palm tree. They bend, but they don't break. He says, he shall grow like a cedar in Lebanon. Now, the cedar of Lebanon, now this blessed my socks off. Yeah, I had a good time in this office today. I'm just telling you. It produces an aromatic oil. The tree produces oil. Y'all know what the oil is, don't you? That's the anointing. It says that the tree produces oil that is pest resistant. So the oil that comes out of the tree keeps leeches and other insects that want to destroy it off of it. So here it is. Here's it from then and there to here and now. There are some people that won't be able to deal with you because the anointing on your life challenges them. The oil that's coming off of your life frustrates them. So they hang for a while. But then get to talking about you always down at the church. Get the trip. Because the oil that's coming off your life, you always in there praying, you always reading that Bible. Well, here's the problem. This is what you don't get. That when I'm spending time with the Lord for minutes and he works miracles in seconds, I'm in there with him for hours in his presence, and then I go to work and he done open doors for me. How you think that's happening? It ain't because I'm great at what I do with everything. I can tell y'all that. I'm a living witness. I ain't just absolutely, I'm not the best person in my job to do what I do. I'm not. But here's the problem. I don't have to massage everything through completion, because sometimes I walk in and what they were working to make happen had already happened when I got there. And so I'm just managing what's already taking place when they try to make it happen. And there's a difference. There's a difference. So it produces an oil that is pest resistant. But here's another part. It's a hard wood that was it was most favorable for building. And so in 2 Samuel 5:11, David used cedars of Lebanon to build the temple. Okay? So this wood is very durable and is good for building. So David used it to build the temple. But the Bible says that we are now the temple of the Most High God. So in other words, he says you're going to be like the cedars of Lebanon. In other words, I'm going to use you to build my church. I'm going to use you to build. So now you understand, because of what we are made of, we are great for building. Now you know why some people in your life don't want to let you go. When the time is up, they still got to hang. They still trying to hold on because it's something about you that makes their life work. Even if they don't want to be committed to the relationship, it's something about you that just makes their life work. Because he says we are a product that's favorable for building. But here's another thing about the cedars of Lebanon. And he said this is how we're going to grow. This tree grows in less than favorable positions, and that's when it's at its best. It grows in less than favorable conditions, and that's when it's at its best. These trees routinely grow on the sides of mountains. Cedars of Lebanon. They grow on the sides of mountains. So look at this. As an adaptation, the roots of the tree first grow downward. And you don't see any growth on top of ground for 12 to 18 months. So a cedar of Lebanon, it grows downward first. And so for 12 to 18 months, you don't see nothing. So if you were to look at a cedar of Lebanon, you might say prematurely that it's not growing. But it is growing. It's just growing in areas you can't see. Now we talk about being planted. And sometimes we look at folks who come into church, oh, they ain't trying to be saved. But they keep coming. They're growing, but they may be growing in areas that you can't see. But when you dig them up and bash them and beat them down, you stop the growth. The cedar of Lebanon grows straight down first. It's growing in areas that you can't see. And so then sometimes we get frustrated in our own walk because there's something that we want God to do. Lord, I'm coming to church. I'm paying my tithes. I'm active in ministry. But I want to be married. So what's going on? And you say, well, ain't nothing happening for me. Well, listen, you growing down. You may be growing in other areas, and you looking at this one area and think ain't nothing else happening around you because you focusing on one area. You didn't recognize how your temple is turning around. You have not recognized that your time management has become better. You have not recognized that you're more mindful of the stuff you say. And it's because you're being planted, growing in areas that you can't see. But then it says, so it grows downward, then it grows up. So, and this growing up is breakthrough. So it grows down first to get depth. Because it's going to have to, think about it, if the tree is growing on the side of the mountain, it's growing on a slant. The first thing that the tree does is improve its ability to hold on. That's the first thing that happens.
Yes, yes.
That deep root makes sure that when the storm comes and the avalanche comes, it can hold on.
Yes.
So before it grow up, it grow down.
Yes, yes, yes.
And so what the Lord says is what I'm trying to do in your life is I'm developing first your ability to hold on.
Yes, yes.
Because some stuff gonna come that's gonna happen that I may not change, but you ain't gonna be destroyed by it. Amen. So I gotta get your ability to hold on first. Then it grows up. Yeah. Now here's where a lot of us lose it, because a lot of us, we deep, but we never grew up. So now you looking around the church, folks deep is wells, but never grew up. So you gifted, but you got a bad attitude. Grow up. Come on, come on. You deep. You so deep that you come in here floating. The angels carrying you up the aisle. But you can't work with nobody on the committee. You deep, but grow up. You deep. Now, I'm telling y'all, now the Lord gave me this first. I took it first back there. You deep, but you got to grow up.
Yes, yes.
So it grows down, then it grows up, and then growing up is where you see the breakthrough, but then it grows outward, that's community.
Oh, Jesus, yes.
It grows deep to get some hold on. It grows up, that's maturity, then it grows out, that is community. This is how the tree grows. He says in the verse, he says, you shall flourish like the palm tree. He shall grow like the cedar in Lebanon. So he says, when you plant it, this is how you're going to grow. Down, up, out. Your ministry can't expand outward if you never grow up. So you gifted and deep. But if you don't grow up and then mature in your gift, you will never grow out. To go to the world. He can't send you. He can't trust you in your immaturity. I'm just trying to show you what the Bible says. Now look at this. All right. He says, those that be planted, verse 13, in the house of the Lord shall flourish in the courts of our God. So he said, if you be planted in the house, you will flourish in the courts of our God. Now when you think of the courts of our God, you look at your job. You look at the church, everything you see down here, we're in the courts. Everything, God owns it all. He says, but if you be planted in here, then you'll flourish out there. Now look, now I'm going to show you something now. This shook me a little bit back there. Now look at this, planting. Don't miss this. The process of planting something and burying something look the same. Exactly the same. The process of burying something and planting something look exactly the same. When you bury something, you dig a hole, you drop it in there, and you cover it up. When you plant something, you dig a hole, you drop it in there, and you cover it up. So the question is, what is the difference between being buried and being planted? What's the difference? Because we gotta make sure we get this together, because somebody here got it wrong tonight. You thought that you were being buried, but you were actually being planted. So let me help you understand what's the difference. You bury something when it's over, but you plant something when it's just beginning. You bury something when it's done, but you plant something when it's time for it to develop. And so we look at all of the dirt being heaped on us and say, Lord, you must have forgot about me down here. The weight of the world is on my shoulder. I'm being buried under the circumstances of life. And God said, I ain't buried you, I planted you. I didn't bury, I planted you. And so you say, well, Lord, how do I know that I'm planted and I'm not buried? He said, you ain't got to know. The soil does. So you ain't got to know. The soil knows. Because if you put something dead in the soil, it decomposes it. But if you put a seed in the soil, it just develops it. And so here it is, what kills somebody made you better. Somebody Somebody went through something and spread their brains all over the wall. You went through that same thing, and now you know another level of who God is. Somebody went through something and gave up on life. You went through something and found another level of who God is. Somebody got to the bottom and said, I'm on rock bottom. But when you got to the bottom, you realized that the bottom was Jesus. On Christ, the solid rock I stand. And all of the ground. Boy, woo, come on. Jesus. The soil knows. And so then God plants us and say, grow where I planted you. I'm putting you somewhere and setting you in a place, not because I'm trying to destroy you, I'm trying to develop you. But here it is. The reason that you thought you were buried instead of planted is because you couldn't see what was in you. You couldn't see it. Because the Bible says a tree is known by the fruit that it bears, but a seed don't have no fruit yet. So you can't see it. And so you didn't know whether you were buried or planted because you can't see what's in you all the time, because the trials of life sometimes will blind you and tell you you can't be what they said you are. Because if you were, you wouldn't be going through what you're going through. There is no way God loves you.
Help us.
How could God love you and not help you? This is what circumstances tell us. How could God love you and watching you suffer? And all he got to do is snap his finger and it's over and he don't do nothing. That's what the enemy will tell you. But God has said, no, I put you in some soil that's designed to get what's in you out of you. And so here it is. And God says, I recognized that I cannot allow you to be surface, because if you surface, you'll never grow. You put a seed on top of this carpet, guess what's going to happen? In a few weeks, it's going to be dead. Dried out. Surface. I can't put you on the surface. I got to dig a hole. Drop you in it,
Yes, sir.
and take dirt and mess and pile it on top of you.
Yes.
And the soil will get out of you what's in you. And so then we look at our local church, and the devil is telling somebody that the moment you get frustrated, you leave not understanding that this is the place where you've been planted. And God says, I'm going to get out of you what's in you, but you got to stay there. If you put a seed in the ground and dig it up, because you don't see nothing in 2 or 3 days to keep moving it, eventually, you ain't going to have nothing. You can church hop if you want to. God's speed.
Come on, help us.
May the force be with you. But if you don't develop no roots, what God would do, he can't do.
Help us, Lord. Help us.
Now we ain't finished now. We're going a little bit further. So then he says, God says, I know the place that I put you. I'm going to put you in a place that's going to get out of you everything I put in you. So then verse 14 says, they shall still bring forth fruit in old age. So in other words, when you're planted in God, he says, age does not determine how fruitful you are. See, when we think of progressive thinking, we think that that's age appropriate. It's not. You can be 92 years old and be the sharpest mind and think far ahead of everybody. It's not dealing with age. It's about a mindset toward what God is doing. Can I align myself with what God is doing, whether it's the same or different? That's when we have the mind. Let this mind be in you that was also in Christ Jesus. Jesus says, I only do what I see the Father doing.
Come on.
I'm watching God.
Yeah.
Because if I'm watching God and I'm moving following God, then all the stuff around me don't matter. See, here's what we do. We grade ourselves on a curve. And I used to love that in college. I loved it. So y'all, for those of y'all who have not experienced the grace of being graded on a curve, let me tell you what it means. It means, it's literally scholastic grace is what it is.
That's exactly
Educational grace is what it is. So the test is worth 100 points. The person in the class that scores the highest, say they score 45 or 50. They score 50, which is an F on the regular grading scale. But because everybody flunked miserably, the 50% becomes the A. And so you're graded in comparison to the one who scored the highest. So if you made a 45, you got an A. Now you really failed the test, ain't learned nothing, but you passed. That's grace. That's grace. Because here it is. I never equaled 100 in who I am. But the grace of God covers. Oh my God. So I got an A because he got an A. Now unto him who's able to keep you from falling and present you faultless. It's because of his presentation.
Jesus.
God looks at me and sees the blood of Jesus and death passes over.
Come on now, that's it.
I thank God that grace has graded me on a curve. Now that wasn't even what I was supposed to say, but now back to my original point. So then, when we grade ourselves on this curve, what we do is we look at the people around us who's doing this and that and the other and say, I'm all right based on what I see. So, yeah, I don't come to church like I'm supposed to, but at least I'm not drinking every day. That's great on the curve. What does the Bible say? See, if my eyes were on Jesus, it don't matter what you're doing. I'm striving, trying to make 100. 99 and a half won't do. I'm pressing towards the mark of the prize of the high calling, which is in Jesus Christ. So when I go and people say, well, Paul had all these types of issues and Paul had all this kind of stuff. So what make you think you should strive for perfection? Because Paul didn't die for me. Jesus did. And the Bible never told me that Paul was my example. Jesus is. So I thank God, Brother Paul, for all your letters. But at the end of the day, I'm looking at Jesus. If Paul jumped off a cliff, I ain't gonna jump. I'm following Jesus. So we can't grade ourselves on the curve of what's going on around us. Well, they ain't doing nothing, so I guess I'm all right. All right, you grade on the curve. Now look at this. A seed, we're still talking about being planted. A seed inside of itself has the total potential of what it can become. But it has everything to do, what it becomes, has everything to do with if and where it's planted. It's all on the inside of it. The soil does not create what the seed is, it just activates it. So when you come to church, the church don't make you who you are. You come from the factory with what you call to be. But when you come in here, what the Lord does is he activates what's on the inside of you so that you can grow into what he has called you to be. We don't make you. So that means if somebody come and call and say, the Lord has called me, I'm not going to automatically jump and say he called you to preach. Because your calling may be to the classroom. That may be your pulpit. Because what we do, we have a tendency to say that if somebody's called, we diminish it if it's not a call to a pulpit. But here it is. He says, I have sheep of another fold, them also must I bring. That's somebody in the classroom that ain't gonna never come to the church. But if he has a representative in the classroom, then he has a light in darkness, and somebody can give that life to God at Coleman and Watson Chapel in the classroom. There are apostles of education just like there are apostles of the gospel. And so therefore, our responsibility is to activate what's in us. I'm waiting my daughter, as much as I would like her to preach. I don't know if she's going to do it or not. Sometimes she make me feel pretty good. You know, make me think she's probably going that way. But then when I look at the stuff she's interested in, I would be less than a good father to try to direct her in the way I want her to go, because that's what I want to see in her. I have to see what God called her to be and usher her into because God gave her to me. And here it is. If God gave her to me, that means he trusted me to get her back to him. not to take her away from him and take it to where I want her to be. So I'm not going to listen. So when I'm praying that the Lord show us who we are and where our pulpit is. It may be in the judges, at the judge's bench. It may be in the class. It may be behind a scalpel. It may be on the back of a garbage truck. There may be somebody that worked for the garbage company that said, I will never accept Jesus Christ. Ride on that garbage truck with you every day, hear you singing how good the Lord is. Ask you one day, why you keep talking about how good God is? Let me tell you why I keep singing that. Because one day I was lost and now I'm found. One day I was bound, but now I'm loosed. He's changed my whole life. Well, I don't believe that. Why you don't believe that? Because I went through this and I went through that. Let me tell you something. The very God who did that, he can change your life right now. Give me your hand and repeat after me. On the back of a garbage truck. Because we thinking we got to get the whole world. Jesus' ministry was 3 years and he changed the world with 12 people. Just give us some context. There was a man who was doing all these revivals, and he got upset because nobody would come to his revivals. They would advertise for weeks and weeks and weeks. He'd get there, he'd get 20 people, 20, 30 people. Just never would get all these folks. And so Oral Roberts would have a revival. They would just hear about him. He would tell nobody nothing. They just hear he was in town, they run over there. And so he was doing this for years and years and years. And finally he got to the point he says, Lord, tonight, if don't nobody come to my revival, don't nobody get saved, I'm quitting tonight. Goes out, 15 people come. Preach hard, because this is his last time. And then, at the end of it, he made the altar appeal, and one boy came. Just one. The little boy came up, gave his life to the Lord, and he said, when he was done, he said, I want to turn around and show you all this young man is giving his life to the Lord. He says, young man, what is your name? He said, my name is William Graham. Y'all may know him as Billy Graham. Billy Graham got saved in a revival of a man who could only pull 15 people. Now think about how many of the millions that got saved under Billy Graham. And all of them salvations are charged to that man.
Jesus.
Because if Billy Graham wouldn't have got saved.
Oh, praise God.
So that's why I know when Superintendent Starker got to the gate and all the people got saved at his hand, all the people that got saved by the people who got saved, it probably was so much of it was people already there and said if it had not been for that man, I wouldn't have made it up here. And when we talk about well done, I want somebody to be on the other side waiting on me. Said, then you told me about Jesus. I got a grandmama over there that's waiting on me. I'm trying to get this thing cleaned up. I don't want to go right now, Lord. I'm just saying. All right, I got 2 minutes. Okay, so then, the soil does not create what the seed is, it just activates it. So the seed cannot become what it was created to be if it's not planted. And an unplanted seed eventually loses its ability to produce. So what the enemy does is he does not want us to be planted in our local assemblies. Because if we church hop all over the place or we never get planted in ministry, we never stay long enough to develop a root system. And a tree, here's the problem. Because a tree that is not planted cannot be pruned. If a tree isn't planted and you cut something off of it, since it's disconnected from its life source, it does not have what it needs to reproduce it. But if a tree is planted or is connected and you trim it, it produces more fruit. John 15:2, every branch in me that beareth not fruit, he taketh away. And every branch that beareth fruit, he purgeth it. Why? That it may bring forth much fruit, more fruit. So if you're not planted, God cannot do what he needs to do in you and through you to make you fruitful. So you can watch TV and watch the televangelist, but the televangelist will not hold you accountable. If you walk in the house drunk, the televangelist ain't going to see that. But if you come in here smelling like Cavassier, Somebody gonna smell it. So what's going on? Your eyes don't look right. Like the moment, I remember Pastor David Grissom, I ain't gonna get to the rest of this. I remember Pastor David Grissom told me, he said, man, I knew them old mothers had power, man. I said, why you say that? He said, because I remember one time I was walking down the street and I found this book and it was something I wasn't supposed to be looking at. And he said, I found the book and I looked at it. I said, oh, Pastor Grissom. He said, then I got convicted, so I threw it in the trash. So then I went home and the devil reminded me what that book was. I went back, found that book. He said, and I got to church that Friday night. And I walked in the door and walked past and said, hey, mother. Said the mother at Trinity grabbed his arm and said, I see a little perversion on you. And he said he was shook in his boots. He said, I just don't want to tell my mama. You can tell Jesus, but just don't tell my mama. But it was that level of discernment that when you come into the house of the Lord and we're part of the body, something ain't right. If your lymph nodes swell up, it could be infection almost anywhere in your body. Because that's why when we come together, we plan it together. If something is wrong with our brother or sister, we ought to know it. Now I'm going to give us this and I'm going to go because this is done. So let's examine this. Just one thing. What does the root system do for a tree? Here it is. A tree gets its stability from its root system. It gets its stability. But here's the caveat. But it also stabilizes the trees around it. The root system. In other words, trees help other trees stand up. Come on. Oh my God. So when the wind starts blowing on a single tree, the roots of that tree are interlocked with the roots of the trees around it. So when the wind is blowing on that tree, it's not literally just blowing on that tree, it's actually blowing on the whole forest at the same time. So a wind that's strong enough to blow over one don't have the power to blow them over all at the same time. So if you're isolated away from your church family, a storm of life can take you out by yourself. But if we're in here together, enemy, if you try to take her out, you're going to have to take all of us out. You ain't going to just get one. You got to get us all. And when we come together in faith, what are you going to do with us? You under our feet. Because even if somebody is hurting, somebody, remember the word of the Lord that said, listen, we resist the devil and he'll flee. Somebody going to remember what the Lord said and say, no, pick yourself up. You ain't got to go through this. You don't have to deal with this. I'm going to help you to get through this. We're going to walk together. Yes. So trees help other trees stand up. So if it's blowing on one tree, that's what it looked like, but it's actually having to blow on the whole forest. In other words, trees stand by committee. So when we're looking at ourselves and somebody get through something and they start running off and they leave and go find something else to do, come on back here. If you see a tree blown down, most of the time it's in isolation. You don't go in the middle of the forest and see no tree blown down. It may be cut down, but it ain't blown down. Them trees standing together by committee. And what the Lord is calling us to do, because listen, times are going to get harder in the world. And God said, if you won't stand, this is how you're going to stand. Together. Everybody stand.